Welcome to the Raise Up Podcast, the only podcast focused on how you can get a raise at work. Every week, we're dishing tips and tricks straight from the industry experts, CEOs, and HR directors, so you can finally get paid what you're worth. So buckle up, Buttercup. Let's break it down. She's a little sassy, but a lot of fun. Here's your host, Amanda Lefevre.
Hey, welcome to the Raise Up Podcast. My name is Amanda Lefevre, and I'm here to help you make more money at your job. We have an amazing guest today, and I'm very excited for this conversation. His name is Greg Needham, and he's a 20-year veteran of the hospitality, gaming, and esports industries. Greg has held executive positions with multiple companies, serving as a board member, COO, CMO, and VP of strategy. With a focus on marketing, sponsorship, acquisition, and business development, Greg brings with him a wealth of professional experience and a deep roster of cross-industry contacts and strategic partners. From sports bars to nightclubs, casinos to poker, and esports, Greg has made a career out of concepting and producing human experiences that both entertain and offer valuable engagement for both guests, communities, and sponsors alike. Greg, I am fascinated with what you do. Thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure, Amanda. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So how are you doing? COVID has been pretty rough on a lot of companies. How's your team and your family and everybody coping?
Well, starting with the family, obviously we went through the end of the school year prior to the summer, which was a little bit of a challenge. I think most people are familiar with the bandwidth issues that you'll have in the home. Fortunately for me, we're a gaming family. I work in the gaming industry, so we've got plenty of bandwidth. Otherwise, we'd never receive any of our emails when my son is gaming. But we went through a few challenges with that, but luckily I have a daughter in college, a son in high school. My wife works for the elementary school here in town as well. So we were able to kind of carve out our own space in the home. So that was good. And then, professionally, I'm lucky enough to be in what we'll call the digital world. The company currently has a variety of different verticals, not only in the digital space, but also in gaming. And we work with brands to cross them over into esports and competitive gaming as well. So all those things kind of still kept moving. As I'm sure you've seen, there's plenty of data out there that shows that people were watching and playing a lot of games. And no question that we were in the middle of all that. So we were fortunate enough to really take that time to excel and take some steps up. And our viewership has increased immensely. So that's helped us in many forms. So it's been good for us in that sense, although I can say that not being in the office and engaging with people personally has been a little bit of a challenge, but as opposed to some other industries and some other types of businesses, we've been able to convert that rather well because we're already, securely positioned in that space. So it's good.
That's amazing. That's good news.
Yeah.
Plus the viewership and everything is up. That's awesome.
Yep.
Has it been challenging for your teams? Are you guys meeting virtually as well?
Yeah, we, again, as I said, we were really digitally engaged already, even though we were, basically in offices next to each other. I mean, we certainly had the in-person meetings, but then our communication tools were always either via Slack, Discord, and then, of course, the old school email. But much of what we've done over the course of the COVID separation time and quarantine has been picked up rather quickly with what we do in Discord, which is something that's more of a gaming type of a platform. But it's been something that everybody was engaged with already. So all we had to do is switch and create a few offices and a few tables and a variety of things. So we have that virtual kind of office space where you can actually go in and sit at a table, right? You have different tables, one for esports, one for our digital, another one for our marketing, and so on. And so you can move from those different tables if you just want to hang out and talk and have conversation while you're working. And then we have the conference rooms that are separate for those independent meetings that we'd rather you knock in the form before you come inside. So it's been kind of a virtual office space, and it's served well for us.
That's good. That's really interesting and awesome that you guys had that infrastructure. A lot of people have had to pivot and try to figure out how to be digital at this point and go online. So as you know, our show is all about someone improving their financial situation. So getting a raise at their job. If a friend came to you and said, I feel like I've earned a raise at work, what would you say to them?
Well, I think, number one, and I've kind of touched on this a little bit in my dissertation here during our conversation, is that you really have to be aware of the culture in the office. And I think when you look at different industries and you look at different relationships, I mean, people manage differently, right? There's a variety of conversations that always, come back to the same thing. You have to manage individuals. You have to work with individuals. You have to engage with individuals, which means they always have different, let's say, buttons to push. I mean, certain people need a little bit more tender care, if you will, when you're trying to motivate them, and others need to really just kind of be, smacked to get going. And, what's interesting about that is that I think the reverse of that conversation of how you manage people from a management position is also true when you're trying to go in and talk to your supervisors or your boss, and of course, following protocols and everything. But the first thing that I would say is really define for yourself where you fit in the culture of that office and where you fit in the culture of the business and how everybody interacts together. And I think if you sit down and you start to write down a variety of different things, certainly there's the basic things that you'll want to represent, how you've contributed and the things that you've excelled in and everything else. But I think more than anything is really that preparing yourself for a conversation starts in where you fit in the culture that is the everyday activation in the office space. So I would suggest that they start there, evaluate for themselves not only how they fit in, are they somebody who is supportive? Are they somebody who people go to? How is the exchange with individuals within the office? Is there a crossover between departments? Because you always have these people that are the cheerleaders of the people that are all about team, and when you're having those meetings, those are the people that you rely on to kind of bind everybody together. But then you also have the analytical people, and you have a variety. And you got to kind of have an understanding personally how you engage with all of those individuals. And I think that's the best place to start, because that's something that hopefully your supervisor or your boss is aware of, because those are the types of things that they're looking for with their team. And I think many times people overlook that. And so that would be the first place that I would suggest that somebody looks at if they're considering opportunities to go in and position themselves better for a raise.
So, kind of doing a brutally honest evaluation of yourself and your people skills.
Yeah. And where do you align, and where do you fit in that whole hierarchy, or just really in the engagement? And I think the other thing too, by the way, Amanda, is that if I was to pick three different things, I would say, what's your contribution? What was the expectation, or what is the expectation of your job, and then the culture, as I mentioned. And I think as long as you're looking at what those three elements are, as far as who you are and what you do within the business and within your relationships with all of your coworkers and so on, you're going to find a variety of things that you can see right away that you either are very good at, or things that you've done differently, or things that you are maybe a little bit more adept and maybe practice better than some other individuals. And it's not necessarily measuring yourself against others, but literally the thing I always come back to with friends of mine is, what were you hired to do? What are you, what was the expectation when you had that position? And when I say expectation, I mean not only what the business and your boss and everybody expects from you to deliver, but also what did you expect from it? What were you, from the day that you started, what were you hired to do? What were the expectations? Hopefully through that process, you had a little bit of a job description, those types of things. So if you actually take the time to look at those things and kind of develop an understanding of how others see you, you can also blend that with how you see yourself. And I think that's a good place for you to be able to feel confident about who you are. And you definitely need to in order to have those conversations with a supervisor.
Yeah, for sure. So you also need to be pretty confident when you go in there, do you think? Or do you think you have to prepare well for your performance reviews? Do you think it's a confidence thing?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a combination, right? No question. I think you do need to be confident. I think you absolutely have to go in understanding that you're coming in trying to show somebody that you deserve a raise. And deserving a raise is, the core principles of that are going to be, all right, well, what are they going to ask and what are they going to evaluate me on? And I think the confidence factor, number one, is something much like you do in a sales presentation, right? I mean, and I work with a lot of people that are in sales and sponsorship acquisition and everything else. And you certainly have to have at least the confidence in yourself, and show that you know the reason why you're in there, and you believe the reason why you're there, and having those conversations is because you deserve it. But again, to your comment about preparation, you definitely need to be prepared, because you're not, well, you can't be completely sure how the conversation is going to go. So you need to be prepared with your argument. You need to be prepared with, how you're going to position yourself within, again, the culture, and how you react with different people, and how those things. But you also have to be prepared to be challenged, because anytime you're asking or having an open conversation, I think many times supervisors and managers and bosses, and whatever title you want to give them, sometimes revert back to okay, well, I have to tell them what they're doing well, and then I also have to challenge them on what they're not doing so well. So not so much like a formal review, but you do have to look at it that way, that you need to be prepared to have an open conversation about what your strengths and weaknesses are.
Absolutely. So it sounds like you have a lot of experience. You've been in many business executive type roles. Mm-hmm. What do you think has kind of contributed to your success?
Well, I do think, number one, I've always been somebody who works with the team. And I think what's been a big part of my career advancement, and things that have gone on, and it's not always been an advancement, we've all had our ups and downs in life, is that I try to manage people the same way, and work with them, and have a respect for them. I mean, people always ask that question, would you rather be loved or hated? Well, I want to be both, right? That's kind of how the answer always comes out. But to be honest, I find that I get a lot more done with my team and people that I work with if I'm just honest, open, respectful, and give them as much as they give me. There isn't anything that I'm going to ask someone to do that I wouldn't do myself. And many times I feel it's necessary to show that. You got to get your hands dirty sometimes. You got to get out, and you got to work. And the other, I think, contributing factor to all of that is just that you have to have a relationship. Again, when we're talking about going in for a raise, and we're talking about even somebody who's having to give raises, I mean, many times in a management position, you've got 10 people that you have to do annual reviews for, and of course, everybody gets to that point where, oh boy, I've been putting this off way too long, and it becomes too much of a function of paperwork. And that's the last thing that you want that to be. You want it to be all about nurturing people and helping them move along. And I think for me, what I really enjoy the most is having people that have worked with me, people that have worked technically under me, and watching them grow and take on positions, whether with our company or with other companies. And I think that for me has always been something that I've focused on, that I've been in that position. I am in that position. I have bosses, I have supervisors, but it's always about making sure that you're having communication, which is, quite frankly, very challenging in these times. So I think that's attributed to most of what I've done. And to tell you the truth, Amanda, I just really feel it's important for me to feel that's who I am. I don't want to give up who I am because of what I'm necessarily supposed to do based on what the requirements of the job are. I would rather have the requirements of the job and all of the goals and initiatives reached in a fashion that I feel most comfortable with, because I think I'll be most effective, and I think the people that I work with will be most effective that way. And I think that's been helpful for me in my career.
Yeah, and it sounds a lot like you value people, like you care about your teams and the people that you're working with. And I think sometimes we're missing that component. I know when I first started out in business, I was working really hard, and I found out that one is too small of a number to really accomplish much. So do you think that that's kind of a perspective shift, like a mindset that we need to work on, that it's all about teamwork, really?
I do. I think many times, especially, entrepreneurs, and I've worked with a lot of startups and a lot of great people that have, unbelievable energy and have a skill set that you would, well, let's just put it this way. It takes a certain kind of person to start a business, right? I mean, the person at the top, they always say it's the loneliest place to be and everything else. But what I see more often is that the businesses that are successful and the people that are really going to make a difference and are going to continue and get through hard times like this is to have that open communication and that conversation. I don't think anybody who's kind of put out in a silo and kind of separated from people, even again during this whole quarantine, it's even more important that you make a special effort to reach out. So I would say this much, that team effort is certainly something that I think is important. But I also think you have to have protocols and direct reports and all those other things. But as long as you have the systems and infrastructure in place, you can really maximize that. And I've been in sports all of my life, things of that nature. And I think esports, by the way, is a sport. It has all the similar type of teamwork elements to it. And I'll have those conversations where necessary. But it's something that I think, again, you really cannot get things done on your own. But too many times you'll see people that are aggressive and very entrepreneurial. They won't give up some of those things. They want to do it all and they have it done all their way and everything else. And then you lose different perspectives. And you want to make sure that you've got input from all your different team members, because otherwise, why are they there and why did you hire them? You hired them for their skill set, their experience, and what they can contribute to the development of your business. And it can't all be done in a vacuum, and it can't all be done at one desk.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So, one of the things we're trying to do with this podcast is combat the idea that you have to change your job to get ahead or advance your career. What advice can you give a professionals about talking to management when they're feeling a little bit undervalued, or that their voice isn't being heard, that they want to make a difference, they're striving for more, and it's just not happening?
Well, I think exactly that. I think you have to be open. Now, again, going back to the culture, right? You have to understand what your relationship is and how that works with either your direct supervisor and what their relationship is with their direct supervisor. Who's the ultimate, who sets the tone for the communication in the business. But I do think, again, there are certain things that you can do, because it goes back to the confidence issue, right? You want to be able to have an open conversation, but you also have to be strategic about it. There are certainly times when you probably shouldn't be talking about why you deserve a raise, and there are challenging times all the time. But you also have to be aware of those, and you also have to take stock in, how did I get through that? What did I do to work with the team to excel? How did we all get to the other side of this? And what were the rewards and what were the successes? But then, the flip side is you also have to look at what your challenges are. I mean, again, we always use the phrase, celebrate the successes, but look at our opportunities. What are the other things that we can do? So I think many times when you're starting the process, I think it really takes a mindset for how you're going to approach it strategically, when are the right times, and then how you're properly prepared for that conversation. And many times I think people are a little bit, let's just call it shy or underserving themselves in a sense, because they're not aggressive about it. I think as long as you're in the meetings, you're participating, you're having your voice heard, it's something where you're active, you've got ideas, you've got concepts, all these kind of things. The more engaging that you are, the more familiar they'll be with you and the more they'll listen to the conversation. And I think that's the best way for us to look at it. But then we can also look outside and say, well, again, you can look on the internet and find out what the average salary is for a similar position with another company. And those kind of things certainly you can utilize. But it is true also to look out there and see, how many other jobs are there in your space. Go to the wherever you'd like to research that, to talk to other people in the industry, things of that nature. It's not necessarily that you have to come in and say, well, I'm looking for another job, or
right.
I want to go in there and have that conversation. But you're right. I think it's important to express that you're aware of what's going on outside of your four walls as well, because it's important that everyone understands that you are an individual who's looking to be a bigger part of the team, be a bigger part of the success, and you really need to be rewarded for that. And I've had those instances where you've had those conversations and you've gone over it and over it and over it and over it, and it's like, well, okay, well, now I'm going to have to come in there and say I've been offered another job. I don't want to get there. But as long as you're doing everything that you can to avoid that, it's really going to come down to whether they've effectively made you feel appreciated and compensated you in a fashion that you feel comfortable with where you're at, and quite frankly, that you still have some growth potential with the company as well, because nobody wants to be kind of stuck in a position where they don't feel that they can excel or get a better job within the company.
Yeah, or flatline wherever they're at. That's going to be
Exactly.
so frustrating. So
Yeah.
that's kind of a good segue, because we typically will ask people to share kind of their war stories of getting a raise. Do you have any stories in your memory bank of times that maybe you asked for a raise, or that you know someone that did and didn't go well, or it went fantastic? We love all
Yeah.
those.
Well, I mean, I guess trying to pick the ones that are most appropriate to talk about. Working in the hospitality industry for as long as I have or did, there are a lot of things, of course, that go on with, nightclubs, bars, restaurants, and there's management changes and there's things that happen. I was working at the corporate level, so I had a lot of engagement with a variety of properties around the country, a variety of different regional managers, and then salespeople and marketing people under them. And I guess the biggest example that I could use as something that's somewhat unique, at least in my experience, for me, was going in to have a discussion about a raise and have a discussion about opportunities to grow with the company into a better position. I was a regional director. There was a vice president position available, and there were a couple of other conversations that were going on for development and as the company was growing. And essentially what I found out was that they were shopping for a variety of other people outside. And I got wind of what let's just say the compensation was going to be. So I was fortunate enough to go in and have the conversation about, okay, let's step into this and talk about how, I really want to be a part of this. Here's what I've been doing with the company and gotten us to this point. And I definitely think that I can, help us grow even more in these other positions. So anyway, what happened was we got down to the conversation of the raise, and I just started with, well, I understand you're looking at so-and-so and so-and-so, and their compensation is at this level. And I just like to know why I, number one, don't have a chance, and number two, don't have an opportunity for that type of pay, because I'm already doing the job that you're going to hire them for. So, a little bit of a risk, right? But I had, again, like I said, I had a good relationship with those individuals I was speaking to, people that would understand. And so I guess to get to the point, I was offered an amount of money that was less than what they were offering or looking to hire the other people for. So not that we want to leave it on this note, but I did actually go out and find another job opportunity with a competitor, of which they allowed me to go. And 2 weeks into my new position with my competitor, they called me back and said, all right, we made a mistake.
Oh, no.
We'd really like to have you come back. And so I was fortunate enough in that position to say, well, then this is what I would like to come back. So then I was given the salary that they were looking to pay some other individuals that they were going to hire for the position. So it worked out well for me. It was a little scary, but again, I managed it well. And like I said, I don't think I would have had that conversation with somebody that I didn't have that type of relationship with. But by the same token, that individual who was directly above me and then his boss had to communicate that to the president of the company, and then that's how it all came back. And I actually got a call from the president of the company that straightened it all out. So it was good, and I was very happy to come back and be a part of that team and make things happen from there.
Nice. That's a great story. Success.
Yeah, you only get so many times in your life where you can actually make something work, and I was prepared for what was going to come, but yeah, I was very happy that they called and asked me to come back. So.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that story.
My pleasure.
So, quick question. What's going on with Wisdom? Can you tell us a little bit about what you guys got going on in the future?
Yeah, I'll try and give you the elevator pitch here. What's interesting about Wisdom Gaming Group is that we're in gaming, and I think what's unique for most people who don't necessarily understand the space is there's esports, and there's competitive gaming, and then there's casual gaming, right? Esports is the professional level. Everybody likes that word because it's all very flashy. And, oh my God, you're involved in esports, because and that's great. But again, not all gaming is esports, but obviously esports is part of gaming. So our company really focuses on competitive gaming and casual gaming, and then extending that into esports. So in brief, we have several different verticals of which we work within an agency concept. We work with brands and bring them into the space to bring them in authentically, have them positioned with the right language. We always talk about they're given permission to be in the space because gamers are very fickle. If you come in and are labeled as a poser, you're going to go through a lot of struggles, and in fact you can invest a lot of money in the space and then have them crucify you on Twitter, which isn't a good thing. But long story short is that we help brands come in and make that transition, and then not only have, let's say, the authentic introduction and entry point, but to give them longevity in the space. You have to bring value and you have to be there. Then we also do events and activations. We do many of those types of things along with our partners. But the two major verticals that we're working on right now post-COVID that, of course, we've pivoted somewhat is our media and our content division. We produce a variety of different shows for Twitch and YouTube, of which we work with influencers all over the world. We've been doing remote broadcasts in that fashion for many years. So the shift to doing that, we were already in that space. So it allowed us to bring in a lot of other clients. We work with Blizzard, we work with Riot, we work with Valve, all the major publishers. And recently we just acquired another brand called Gold Rush, which is a beloved Rocket League community brand that we're extending additional content and producing shows for that. And last but not least, we've also launched a esports org, which is roughly the ownership of competitive teams in the esports space. It's called Alpine Esports, and our first team is in the Rocket League competition. So it's the RLCS, the Rocket League Championship Series. So we've got a lot of things going on, and it all kind of works together holistically. And so that's really what our company is all about, is maximizing the opportunities in the gaming space, not deviating too far off the path. We have our core competencies, but we work together with all of the different verticals holistically. And we've found some great success in the space, especially during the COVID era. And that's really kind of it in a nutshell. Quite a bit big nutshell, but that's it.
That's awesome. And it sounds like you guys were very equipped for all of the changes that have happened. So I'm glad that it's been kind of a successful transition, more or less.
Yeah, we're in a good industry for it, so it's a good thing.
That's awesome. And I would imagine that it's kind of booming now that everybody's hanging out at home and things like that.
No question. Everybody's turning to not only competitive gaming for themselves, but also viewing it quite often. And it's getting into linear TV and all the other things I'm sure you saw with the NASCAR productions. For a while, they were doing their sim racing with iRacing. And so eNASCAR is actually something I was involved with in my previous business as well. So anyway, it's all kind of coming full circle, and we think we're going to have a chance to really excel in the space and do a lot more and become a little bit more mainstream. By the way, it's always been insulated quite a bit with the gaming culture and everything, and that's fine. But I think the core gamers are now being let's just say a little bit more accepting of mainstream being a part of the everyday viewership, and in fact supporting that as long as everything is still valuable and still brought in with the right message. So yeah, it's good timing for it, and we're enjoying it.
That's awesome. So how can people connect with you if they want to after the show?
Connect with me. Wow.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah,
I feel fancy.
Ask that. Well, certainly they can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Greg Needham. You can look me up with Wisdom Gaming Group. I think for me, that's really my go-to space. I spend an awful lot of time engaging with people on LinkedIn, but otherwise, simple contact with an email. It's gregn@wisdom.gg. Those who are not familiar, .gg is the go-to URL for gaming. Translates to good game.
Nice.
But anyway, a lot of times when people are looking to be authentic, they go with the .gg. But they can get a hold of me there, gregn@wisdom.gg. Otherwise, please check me out on LinkedIn and send me a request. I am nothing if not accepting and open, and look forward to collaborations with people in lots of different industries. So look forward to that.
I believe that too. You're very authentic, and it's been incredible kind of hearing your wisdom and your advice, and your stories have been fabulous. And thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for asking me, Amanda. I had a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Hey, thanks Thanks for listening to the Raise Up Podcast. If you want to raise, head to www.raiseuppodcast.com and download our step-by-step roadmap where we've taken all the expert advice we've collected and put it into a simple PDF ebook called, you guessed it, How to Ask for a Raise. Before you join us again, make sure to subscribe, share it with your friends. You can click the share button, take a screenshot, and share it on your social stories. And tag @Amanda Lefevre. See you again soon.